Zach LaVine may be the best player on the Chicago Bulls, but teams are just now simply lowballing them on offers for the star, and they're more so looking into if they can sneak by and get Patrick Williams or Alex Caruso. We're going to talk more in depth on this episode of Bulls Digest. I'm your host, Joey Mercer. And before we get into it today, I just want to say that about 97% of you are not subscribed. So if you're looking for daily Bulls content, then look no further. This is the place for you. Join the home, join the crew on Bulls Digest, of course. We have many people now subscribed to the channel. Join those over 300 now that are subscribed. Join the community, and I can't wait to bring you this content each and every single day of the week. 7 days a week, we're here on Bulls Digest doing this, so stay up to date with your Chicago Bulls. Lots of trade rumors around the corner, and we'll keep you up to date on how they're doing so far in the season, as they have a game tonight against the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is ongoing as I record this video. So, the first thing we want to talk about today is the players with the most trade value. So, the players that I just mentioned before were Patrick Williams and Alex Caruso. Those are the guys that teams have really been making some calls around, and the Bulls have been more hesitant because of the packages they've got back. You could say that teams are trying to finesse their way into making a trade with the Chicago Bulls where they lowball them, where they think that the Bulls are going into an automatic rebuild. It seems like the direction that we're going into, but is this a move that is going to happen right now, or are they going to wait until the deadline? Well, the report that I saw was that Bulls Alex Caruso and Patrick Williams are drawing the most trade interest around the NBA. So it's not just because they are a part of the Bulls, but they are just drawing the most trade interest. Is this because of the rebuild, or is it because teams think because of their play, they really want to acquire their services? When it comes to Caruso, he's playing so great, and when it comes to Patrick Williams, he is not playing so good, but is still very young, so they might think if they bring him into the right system with player development, they can turn him into the player that the Chicago Bulls originally thought that he could be. The next thing that I saw in the article that piqued my interest was Zach LaVine has been a name that's been brought up as a likely trade candidate, and one would assume the same can be said about DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic. However, according to Mark Stein of the Stein line, those three aren't the hottest commodities on the Bulls roster. Stein recently reported that Alex Caruso and Patrick Williams are generating the most November trade curiosity around the league. So interesting enough to see there that Caruso and Pat Will are the guys that people are making phone calls on. It's not DeRozan, it's not Vooch, and it's not necessarily LaVine. Teams have lowball offered LaVine, which I've seen some reports on, but I haven't seen anything clear cut from a reliable source, so I won't report that here just yet. It's just been speculation around the league that they've been lowballed, and if we hear more on that, of course, we will cover that here on Bulls Digest. But Patrick Williams off to a really rough start on the year. He hasn't shot the ball near as well as he did the past two seasons, and his defense has been solid, and he's putting up some steals and blocks, but it just isn't the player that we've seen Patrick Williams be the past couple of years. Has he lost a step, or is it simply because the system is not fitting well to his play style? It could be either or, and at the current moment it is really hard to say, but he just simply has not been the right guy to fit the Bulls roster right now, and they should definitely look at moving him, depending, of course, on what the trade package might be. Because we might be able to move DeMar, Vooch, LaVine, or another player on the roster, and now with the fit, Patrick Williams might fit better. You don't know. It all depends on the roster makeup, and maybe with some of the additions that we made in the offseason, it isn't fitting well to his play style, such as a addition of Torrey Craig. He's a guy that fills a similar mold of Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams tries to be a little bit more of a shot creator, but obviously doesn't excel at that near as much. But Torrey Craig doesn't really shot create at all. He's really just a 3-and-D guy to the bone, and that's really all that he does. So you'd like to see a little bit more of Patrick Williams, as there has been comparisons to his game of Kawhi Leonard, which I see, but he is nowhere near that level of Kawhi Leonard, and not on the same pace to become the player that Kawhi Leonard currently is, or was, if you think he's just outside of his peak. Then we got Alex Caruso, such a great defensive talent. Really showed some signs of being a top defender last year when he made an all-defensive team. We talked about recently how good he has been on the defensive end, actually tied for the best defender in the league when you look at the overall stats and the advanced stats of that. And he gets the most deflections in the league right now. So Caruso is a really, really great defender, and they're putting him on top players such as Kevin Durant, Paolo Banchero, and that's just to name a few. Those are some really great players in the league. Paolo obviously shoots the ball not near as good as Durant, nor is he near as good as Durant, but he is also a 6'10 guy that you have to mention that Caruso's guarding 6'10 Banchero, and I believe Durant is now listed at 6'11. So that's a major height that he needs to make up, being around 6'4, 6'5, and not having that great of a wingspan at 6'6, and having to guard these guys with over 7-foot wingspans and nearly 7 feet tall, and doing a damn good job at it at that, I have to say. So that leads us to the next thing that I want to talk about today, and that is why it's not LaVine. So yeah, we just touched on it a little bit on why teams could be lowballing to get these two players, how they have played either not so good in Patrick Williams' case or very good in Caruso's. The LaVine contract has really thrown teams off. He is making a lot of money right now. $49 million a year is a lot of money, regardless of the league you're in, and especially in the NBA, of course. But he is still a great offensive talent. He is 25 a game guaranteed, it seems, when it comes to a player playing in the right system. When he was with Lonzo, he looked so good, just being able to run the floor, play off ball, and that's why teams have almost salivated at the thought of him offensively, but it's the defensive lapses or the lack of playing defense at all, or even trying, that teams have been a little bit hesitant against. The next thing I read that really sparked my interest as well when it came to either Caruso or Patrick Williams was that Caruso's elite defensive play and impact on winning have been extremely evident early in the season, even as the Bulls have struggled. Meanwhile, Williams is due a contract extension next offseason, but has struggled to get things going early stretch of the year. Yeah, so it's interesting to see that early in the season, the Bulls haven't been that good of a team. They're 5-10 as I'm talking about this. But Caruso, they almost won that game against Phoenix, and he has been such a good player down the stretch. They should have won that game against Orlando, as they had that last 2-minute report saying that Paolo traveled against Caruso, who played great defense on the play, and he has been the guy in crunch time to hit big shots or come up with a great defensive play in order to shift momentum or just help seal them the game when it comes down to it. When it comes to Patrick Williams, the struggles, of course, we've just talked about. We don't need to get any more into that, but the contract is up at the end of the year, and he wants triple digits. That could be a reason for us to trade him and make it another team's worry. Do we think he's worth triple digits what he's done? I don't think so at all. He showed signs the past 2 years of being a very elite jump shooter, but he has not carried that into this year. And even if it was just the jump shooting and defense, it is not worth triple digits. You have to think like Cole Anthony, Denny Avdija, different players like that just made contracts around $50 or $60 million over multiple years, and they are better players right now than Patrick Williams. So you can't expect him to make that Jaden McDaniels money when he isn't as good of a player as Jaden McDaniels, for one, and I also think personally Jaden McDaniels was overpaid in a situation where the Timberwolves don't have any draft picks and wanted to lock in a young talent to have there for the future just to put alongside Ant. That's really the situation that I'm looking at there, is they're afraid of losing Ant ultimately, and that is somebody to kind of keep him there if he is such a great defender and if he meshes well with him and Ant likes him. But it is interesting to see that Patrick Williams even wants that money. Is it just because of Jaden McDaniels, or does he think that his jump shooting was so good after the past 2 seasons that he would be projected to be that good? It's interesting to see. I don't think they were going to ever offer him this offseason anything that's substantial. It might have been 2 or 3 years around, $30 to $50 million. That's probably where I would have put it. I wouldn't have put it near triple digits, that's for sure. And I wouldn't have put it that long of a deal either, because although he is young, what are we really ultimately getting out of him? And if you have him locked in and he becomes a player that can't really even play on the court, what team's going to want him? And then you're stuck with a contract that could deter you from getting a star at the end of the day. The last thing we want to bring up today in that article was At just 22 years old, Williams still has the potential to grow into a quality player, which I agree with, but early returns have been rough. Chicago's roster could look very different by the time the trade deadline has come and gone this year. I don't think anybody is untouchable on this team. I really do think that it's going to be a fire sale come deadline, if not sooner, which we're going to keep you up to date here on Bulls Digest. I can't wait to talk to you here now in the next one. We'll be covering this again tomorrow. See what comes up in the news. Are there going to be more trade rumors, or will we just talk about some players within the team? You never know what's going to happen here on Bulls Digest, and I can't wait to share it with you. I'll see you there tomorrow in an episode. This has been your host, Joey Mercer, signing off.